Well, we had a rocky start, but I apologize for the delay. We had technical difficulties, must have been trying to mesh Texas with Ohio tonight. I don't know, but I appreciate all of you that are here and have hung on and waited. Thank you so much, and welcome to the Let's Go Sew live show, where sewing enthusiasts gather to be inspired and learn how to make the most of their machines. I'm Joanne Banko from letsgosew.com, and on the fourth Monday of each month, usually at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I interview industry experts and sewing enthusiasts just like you. And tonight I have a very special guest. I am very happy to welcome my friend Becky Thompson from Power Tools with Thread. And Becky is actually a retired, I want to make sure I get this right, U.S. Air Force Master Sargent. She also has a background in cybersecurity, both on the government and civilian side. And in recent years, Becky has found a way to reach thousands of sewing enthusiasts through her Power Sewing with Thread YouTube channel and blog. And amazingly, Becky has a whole post on her site where she calls herself a creative fraud, of all the crazy things. So we're going to find out what that means tonight and see what that's all about. You'll also find out why people are thronging to join Becky's YouTube channel and learn from her. We're going to learn tonight sewing, crafting, quilting, machine embroidery, all of those things that we love to do. So let me get Becky here and get her in out of that waiting room. Let's see, let me invite her. Oh, hang on, wrong click there. Got too many screens going on. Let me see if I can find her. Close this one. And Becky, where are you? Where are you? Where are you? I am okay. She looks like she's in here twice, so I'm going to try one, and we'll see if that one works. And if we're if we're going good tonight, and if our stitches are interlocking, is Becky there?
Hi.
All right, Becky, you're here finally. Great to see you.
I know. I think I figured out the problem.
Okay. We had a rocky start. So let's see. I'm seeing some people already come into the chat. Hi, Kay. Hi, Debbie. Hi, Paula. Regina. I bet you've got lots of your friends here from Power Tools with Thread joining us.
I am going to jump over to Facebook right now and give them the link.
Okay, very good. That's excellent. That is excellent. So everyone say hi to Becky. And like I said, we were trying to mesh. We're a little bit far apart as far as, traveling time goes. Becky is in Texas and I'm in Northeast Ohio, but that doesn't mean we can't talk with the whole world here, right? And visit with our sewing friends. So, hey, Paula from Fredericksburg. Yep, say where you're from. You never know. You might have a friend nearby. You might make a new friend tonight. So as we are talking this evening, I got a whole bunch of questions I'm eager to ask Becky, and we welcome your questions as well. Now I'm going to take most of the questions at the end so that we can kind of keep going here. But if you got a burning question, you don't want to forget it, pop it in the chat. It's a little bit of a challenge for me, I'll tell you the truth, to keep up with all of the chat at the same time that I'm keeping up with Becky at the same time. And anybody that has to keep up with Becky, anybody that knows Becky, knows that's not an easy thing to do, because she's always doing probably 20 things at once. Right, Becky?
21.
21. All right, now I'm seeing you in another screen, so I'm going to exit that one out and got you only here.
I wanted to give the Zoom one more try on the laptop. I think I figured out the problem, if that would help.
Okay, well, let's try it. We got friends here that are used to this live show stuff and know how it goes. So well, let's give it a shot. I'm going to admit you from that end and see, that way we could get a bigger screen. So I
Right.
just need to double check and see if your audio is working. I see you, but I haven't heard you yet. So I'll let you exit out of the other one and try this one.
No, it's
No,
not going to work.
it's not a happy camper tonight, huh?
No, but
All right.
at least, you know, adapt and overcome, right? That's the military.
You've got that right. You've got that right. Now I don't have any background in that, but you sure do. So like I said, I had to make sure I had to put that part on a piece of paper. U.S. Air Force Master Sargent. I should put retired after that, right?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I retired in 2003 after 20 years. Yes.
But wow, what a background. So I think it's really interesting that, you know, part of your background as the cybersecurity, like you said, you were both in the government side and on the civilian side. And I
Right.
think what our friends here are going to learn a little bit tonight is how that actually prepared you for what you're doing right now by, you know, being a YouTube teacher and star and influencer and reaching people all over. So we'll definitely get into that story a little bit in just a few minutes. But obviously you've got friends here, I've got friends here, and I'm sure that there are some people here who don't know a lot about you. And, you know, even when you have your own channel, sometimes you don't sit there and talk a whole lot about your background and all the little sewing details that we are always so curious about when we meet somebody. So I'm going to ask you a few things along that line, and then we'll definitely get into talking about your YouTube channel. And I know we want to talk about, you know, what it was like for you to get started, what it was like for you to, you know, continue, and give some tips for how somebody, maybe we have somebody here that's, you know, thinking they might want to do something along that line as well. So, you know, it's a big wide open world these days, and it's so much fun to be able to reach people with our love of sewing in so many different places, and you know, all at the same time. So I'm really curious. How did you start to sew? I mean, what's your background? Can you remember your first stitch, your first project? Give me a little bit of insight on some of that.
So my mother was a fabulous garment seamstress, like wedding dresses or bridal party type garment seamstress. Very, very good. She was always going to classes and everything. But, you know, as a child, I never remember being behind the machine. I was always on the other side of it. And I just learned, matter of fact, I ironed backwards because she's a lefty and had the ironing board turned the other way. And so I ironed backwards when I have a standard ironing board. And I actually failed the sewing portion of home ec in 9th grade.
Oh my, that's amazing. That's amazing.
I think it was a skirt or something, and it was so wonky. And we didn't use the word wonky back then, but that's just, sewing was never my thing. And it wasn't until I joined the military and, you know, I was a little E1 Airman Basic, and I needed to have all my patches and stripes, or E2 for a stripe, but all my patches and whatnot sewn on my uniforms. And back then, you know, they wanted $1.25 a piece. And when you're talking 6 or 8 patches, and I'm thinking, I think I can get a sewing machine and do that myself. How hard can that be? That's always been my mantra. How hard can that be? And so that's really where I did most of my sewing. And then when I went to my tech school at Shepherd Air Force Base in Wichita Falls, Texas, I was sewing patches on uniforms there as well. And then I did that. I mean, I made a little extra money on the side doing that. So yeah, that just started it. And then my I really didn't sew anything at all while my son was little, because there was just no time, and I was in the military and, you know, busy. And it was a home deck project. I have a very, very old Vogue nursery pattern. And a friend of mine was having a baby, and she asked me to sew a nursery. And so I did. And, you know, because that's just squares, you know, baby bumpers for the crib and the little, you know, I think the most difficult thing was that gizmo that hangs on the side of the bed that has the little, it looks
The
like
bumpers?
shoe pouches.
Like, oh, yeah.
Yeah, it has a little carry thing, you know, you can put your baby powder in there and your wipes and all that.
The organizer.
That's it.
Yeah. Well, you know, that's really interesting, because I'd love to hear from our friends in the chat and see how many of them started sewing really because somebody asked them to make something, or they knew they could sew a little bit, or they had a machine and they, you know, wanted to see, you know, if you could make this for me, make me happy. So tell us in the chat.
Great.
We got lots of people too that are thanking you for your service. So that's very nice. Thank you for your service, Becky.
My pleasure. Yeah.
And we've also got quite a few that have people, military people, either in their own background or in their family. So I feel like I should have brought my flag with me today to wave my flag.
Here, I've got one for us. How's that?
Oh, that's good. That's pretty cool. That is pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, you know, and a lot has to do, my mother was a military spouse. And so I understand what spouses go through as well. And a lot of my viewers are military spouses. And I totally respect absolutely every bit of that as well. It is almost as difficult as being in the service, as being a spouse. So they are greatly respected, very, very much. But it was the impending birth of my oldest grandson back in 2010 that really launched me into quilting, because I was making that very same nursery pattern again. And I was making the blanket, is what the pattern calls for. It didn't call for a quilt, it called for a blanket. And it was just a yard of material that had some X cross hatching through it, and that was it. But I wanted to make custom bias tape for that baby blanket. And so I went searching. Now we had YouTube, and I went searching for a video. How do I make custom bias binding? And there was a lady there, Jenny Doan, and she had this video. They had just launched Missouri Star Quilt Company. And I said, oh, look at that. And then she was such a nice, personable lady. I watched that video, and then I watched another video she did, and she said, you see this quilt behind me? This is so easy. It's so cute, and it's so fun, and you can do this. And I was hooked from that moment on. I was hooked. The Daily Deal became my homepage on my computer, and that's how I built my stash. And I've always been a bit of a nerd, no matter what I do. And so I started to get into following pattern designers and fabric designers, and what companies are making good quality fabrics, and these machines, and how come that machine is different than this machine. And I like to get into the back end. You were getting into
the nitty gritty part of it.
Of the industry itself. And that really helped me be very, I'm not going to say knowledgeable, but it certainly built my background in the quilting industry. And my husband gave me an embroidery machine, and it was a little Brother PE 770, just a little single needle. And that's a great machine. And I didn't touch it for 3 years. I didn't know. And then I was watching a video on YouTube, and somebody showed using the Brother PE 770. And I said, I think I have one of those machines.
Wow.
And I pulled it out, and there was an older gentleman. I think he's retired from YouTube now. His name was Vince Arcuri, and he was doing unboxings. He's up on the East Coast. He was doing unboxings, and he was showing and talking about stabilizers and threads and how all that worked. And I was just that was it. That got me into embroidery. And now behind me, there's a Brother Luminaire. And on the other side of my room, there is the Brother PR 1055, the new 10 needle. And I'm a Brother baby for sure. Yeah.
Yep. And most of my friends here know, if you don't know it already, I am a Brother ambassador. So I use Brother machines exclusively. And that was another, great thing that we had in common when we started to talk and see what we kind of equipment we had. But, it's interesting. You talk about that, you as a person with a technical background, still having that little bit of a barrier to starting. And I wonder if, some of our friends here have experienced the same thing. Let us know in the chat, if you got a machine and you let it sit in the box just because you just didn't know where to start.
I can't tell you the number of my viewers who email me or leave comments and reach out to me, send me letters, and they say, I got this machine, and these ladies will get a 20-minute rundown in the store from the salesperson. They get excited about it. They bring it home. If they take it out of the box and they stare at it and they say, oh no, what have I done? They're terrified. And that's part of what I do on my channel. And years ago, it must have been about 2 years ago, the Dime magazine, Eileen Roche had put out she was working with Amelia Scott Designs. They had put out a Trapunto table runner in her magazine. And I said, I actually emailed her. I said, can I share this pattern with my viewers? Because I want to do a beginner sew along. And she was so gracious. Eileen Roche was so gracious.
Yes,
and she said, absolutely, you can do that. And so I did that, and I offered the pattern up for free to my viewers. And even after the magazine disappeared, you can still find those posts on my blog. And that pattern is free for the Trapunto table runner. And you can follow along in the video step by step. I mean, I show people how to thread the machine, put the needle in, all of that. And another thing that I do on my channel is I make mistakes, and I leave those mistakes in the videos, because I'm a firm believer that if you know how to handle a mistake, because it's going to happen. We all know mistakes are going to happen. And if you know how to overcome that knowledge will give you the confidence that you need to go sew something.
Right. Your favorite motto. It's interesting that you talk about you yourself learning from video. I'm always interested to ask other sewing enthusiasts, especially, and I don't think we ever stop wanting to learn, but those who are really, seeking to improve and try new things. I'm always interested to know what their favorite form of learning style is, whether it's watching videos, whether it's, reading from a book, a magazine, whatever, an article, a blog, or whether it's being there hands-on and working through the project hands-on. And what I generally find, I'm interested to hear your thoughts on this. What I generally find is that most creatives are a mixture of all of those things.
Right.
And I think, a lot of us have just gotten used to video because there is so much of it out there. And I know for me, it was always a challenge doing the It's So Easy TV show to try to cram everything into, 10 or 12 minutes. So I would always say, well, the instructions are online. That was always my closing line. You can find all the instructions online, because we really thrive on those detailed steps. At least I know I do. So, I mean, what would you say your favorite learning style is, or do you like to combine all of them together? And please, in the chat, let us know your favorite learning styles as well, because I'd love to hear that from everybody that's here.
I'm a manual reader. So I will grab a machine's manual first and sit down and try to figure it out myself. If I need video help, I'll go get it. But I find that a lot of things are in the manual that you don't get on the video. And so when I read a manual, I'll do that. And then I'll use a video as a backup. I don't get me wrong, I use YouTube University all the time.
Yep, I
But
gotcha.
I really had a problem with there not being a manual on one of my recent machines. Now there's a playbook, but there's no manual. So had that been my very first machine, that would have been a barrier, a bigger barrier, or a hurdle, not a barrier, but let's call it a hurdle to jump.
Right.
But yeah, I'm like, well, let me see how that works, and dig hands on. First thing, I'll jump in, get the book, flip the page, try to go through it. Okay, that's not working. What am I doing wrong? And then maybe that's a little hard-headed. I don't know. And that is definitely how I make a lot of mistakes, but that's how I learn.
Well, we're getting comments that everybody, I mean, everybody is saying one of everything, and some are saying all three. So I know myself, I'm a manual reader as well. And I have to say, because I've been involved in working with the machines for so long, that the manuals today are far better than they used to be. They've really, really, really improved. But I've always encouraged people when I teach lessons, read the manual, read it from cover to cover, just to give yourself like an overview. And yes. What I think happens when you do that is some of the things will jump out at you, like, oh, I didn't know it could do this. I didn't know it could do that. And then try to find out more about that particular thing, because I think for most of us, we get most excited when we find something that's going to spark our personal interest. And today, with the machines that we have, especially when you have a sewing and embroidery combination machine, there's like almost nothing you can't do with it. But sometimes you don't know what you want to do until you find out what you actually can do. And then you can find out more about it.
One of the things I do with my channel, so many people tell me that they understand it the way I explained it. Yes. And I really have to credit the Air Force for that. There were many times I was never my career field was never as an Air Force instructor, but they taught me how to be an instructor, because you're forever teaching people how to do things. Because my motto was, I need you to know how to do the job so that I can go on leave and vacation and it'll keep going. Then I know I've done my job right. But for instance, today I shot a video on how to, I'm doing, let me lean out of camera just a second. I'm doing, Pat Sloan has a new book out called Holiday Celebrations.
Let's see your samples. I'd love to see your samples.
Yeah. So I am featured in her book tour. I just sent her these photos, but these are called treat totes. So this is just an adorable little tote bag. It's very simple to do. And I made the applique, the ghost and her little bow. Let me get her up close. She's just too cute for words. And I made this and put this on using Pace Setter's Simply Applique. That was huge for me. I wanted to know how to automate the applique process, because to me, stitching around this is no fun whatsoever. I don't like doing that. I'm not a hand stitcher, and that whole stitch, stop, turn, stitch, I hate it. And so I'm very comfortable with software. So I figured out how to use Simply Applique, and All Brands was gracious enough to let me do a demo for that at the Houston Quilt Festival in 2019.
Very good.
But what I just mastered with the Luminaire just this week was learning to do the stippling around the applique, but not get it on the applique. So all of that threading, all of that stippling was done by machine, not by me, doing this under the, I don't like this. Right. It hurts the shoulders. Yeah.
And the other interesting, I know you use a multi-needle, you use a 10 needle, right? In addition to your Luminaire, which is a sewing and embroidery combination machine. Vicki wanted to know if you actually taught yourself how to use your 10 needle machine yourself, or did you?
Pretty much. Right. I did go to YouTube and watch a lot of videos. That's how I learned how to thread it. And I'm looking at it right now over the top of the camera.
And you name all your machines too. What's the name of the 10 needle?
That's Spanky.
Okay.
That is Spanky. Yes. And then the Luminaire is Darla. Right. Yeah.
I'd like to see if our friends here tonight, if any of them name their machines. I have not actually done that naming of the machines. The only thing I always do is I always call them a she. I just, Even
A
if
she,
even if it's a
right.
brother, it's still a she to me because I
Sure,
just
sure, absolutely, yeah.
ships and sewing machines should always be a she in my world.
But so
I know.
the 10 needle was something I actually was very grateful that I had started the Power Tools with Thread Facebook group. We have people in that group who are beginners, and we have people in that group who are trained professionals that have worked in quilting and embroidery shops for years and years. And I was lamenting on a video that I could not figure out how to get the stops to work for instance, in the hoop pattern.
Right.
And a lady reached out to me, Terry. She reached out to me. She's worked in embroidery her years and years. And she said, I know exactly what you're talking about, and let me help you.
Yeah.
So I've learned a lot from my viewers as well, because they are the first ones. Would you believe, I know you watched my last video where I was talking about making a customized quilt pattern for the motorhome.
I did.
Would you believe Maria, one of my viewers, actually sent me this morning? She sent me a customized quilt pattern for my motorhome.
Wow.
It's incredible. I have the nicest viewers.
Yeah.
I'm over 31,000 in just over 2 years of being on YouTube, which is kind of unheard of.
That's pretty amazing.
It's a lot. And there is a ratings website called socialblade.com, and they expect me to be at 100,000 subscribers by July of next year.
Very good. Well, you produce a lot of content on a lot of different topics. So from what I've seen, you're doing 10 needle, obviously. You're doing the sewing and embroidery combination machine, heavy on the embroidery side, right? Kind of heavy on the embroidery side.
Right. That's kind of my niche, right? Because there are lots and lots of quilters out there on YouTube. Yes.
Yeah. And I was gonna say quilting. So if I had asked you what your particular favorite sewing niche would it be quilting?
Probably teaching machine embroidery.
Okay. But for your own personal enjoyment when you're sewing, is it like you just like quilts dance around in your head and you want to just like the next one, the next one, the next one?
Well, they don't dance in my head. I'm not a creative, believe it or not.
Okay, well, that leads me to that creative fraud question. So we're going to have to get into that, and you'll have to explain that. Do you want to do that now, or do you want to?
Sure. So my mother's left-handed, and most lefties are very artsy. They have a creative bent to them. They are right-brained, and they can come up with something from nothing. And that's very, very difficult for me. I'm very analytical. My mind doesn't, I don't know how to, and that's why I call myself the creative fraud. Okay. I'm really good at following a pattern because, again, I'm more technical, I'm more analytical. And I like simple patterns. I do not profess to be a master quilter in any way, shape, or form. I go to the Houston Quilt Festival and I look at those quilts that have been entered, and I am in awe and awestruck. My mouth will hang open when I look at those. There is no way I could ever make something like that. And so my niche in the YouTube world is, you don't have to be a master quilter. Matter of fact, I like quilting with panels. I love panels because, like the cow behind me here, I love cows.
I can see it. I can see it. Yeah. The flag, is the flag a quilted piece? Is that actually a quilted piece?
It will be quilted. It's not quilted yet. It has the pledge on it.
That's the fun thing about panels is they almost don't, you almost don't have to do anything with them if you really don't want to. You know, you can wrap them around a puffy board, put some thumbtacks in the back, prop it up, and you're good to go.
Exactly. And so, for instance, this quilt back here behind me, this is Lori Holt's Sew by Row. There's a lot of piecing involved with that, and I like that. It's good. It's puzzle work for me. And then this is the flag quilt, is Villa Rosa Designs. That is Liberty, and I just did a sew along for that on my channel. That was 4 days worth of sewing along. And then over here, there's a spaceman panel, and that's for my grandson. And so that is a panel that has half square triangles all around it. Okay. And what I do is I try to it was Villa Rosa Designs that got me into the online influencing, really, because they actually reached out to me and said, oh my gosh, you made this pattern, and sales of the pattern went through the roof. And so now I'm a video partner with Villa Rosa Designs.
Okay.
And they feature me in all of her emails she sends out. Pat Fryer, wonderful lady, sends out to all of her customers. And that's how that kind of started. Like that was getting in, doing that. But Villa Rosa Designs patterns are fabulous because they're simple. There's a lot of them that don't have any bias cuts to them. And if you're a beginner quilter, that is the best place for you to start. You get something's pretty. You can use a pre-cut. If you're looking at Missouri Star's website and you see a layer cake that you love, it's really easy to find a pattern to make that up. And I encourage people to do that. The passion that you hear is legit. And right. I'm like, oh, look, that's beautiful. Let me go buy that. And then when it comes in, I show everybody on the channel.
Well, I should tell everybody too, we got a little bit of a rocky start. So I forgot to say that at the end of this, I will actually get some links from you. I'll go back through the show and I will do a blog post on my letsgosew.com webpage over the weekend. And we'll have a recap of the show. I'll have the show posted there so anybody can watch it again if they want. From there, and we'll have a place where I can add links to some of the things that we thought were things that people would be really interested in, so they could find them really easy, and of course find you as well. So we'll have all the contact information right there. Great. And then we'll also have the opportunity, if someone had a question here tonight and didn't get it answered, to leave it in the comments on the blog at letsgosew.com, and then I'll get a hold of you and we'll make sure we answer that, because that's the whole point of this, right? We want to reach out. I wanted to, everybody to meet you. I want you to be able to share your knowledge. We're sharing knowledge with each other through the chat, and we all learn from each other all the time. So it's great to, have that opportunity. We got so many great comments coming through here. We have people that love machine embroidered applique. I wanted to ask you, just back up a minute, the sewing machines on that one particular quilt that you showed. What is that, applique, or are those machines made from pieced patchwork?
Those are pieced patchwork.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
All of those are. That pattern has, you're talking about that one right there? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So the top row is scissors. The second row are pin cushions. The third row are sewing machines, and and there's several more rows. And it kind of got put on hold because I moved from my old sewing area into this new remodeled room, and I haven't touched it since last February. I've got to get that done, but I've made obligations. For instance, the Liberty quilt from Villa Rosa Designs. We are in the middle of doing Red, White, and Bloom from Kimberbell, and I'm doing a sew along with that. But the weather here, every time I turn around, it's raining, and I'm having to unplug the machines. And then when we have a nice day, I'm running off doing something, real life things. But I've got on my blog, powertoolswiththread.com, there is a calendar of events page. And the next thing we have coming up is, and we're going to do an OESD sew along. It's actually scissor tail stitches for Merry and Bright. And that's a beautiful, beautiful tiling scene that we'll have ready for Christmas. So that'll be fun. And then we're going to do Kimberbell's candy corn quilt shop.
Okay, so you like to find designers who have put together a project and then do it yourself and walk your viewers through that project as you go along. Right. So I think what's fun about that is they can see obviously they can see how it's done while you're doing it. And just like you said, they can see when you make the mistakes, it's like, okay, I'm going to avoid that one. But sometimes they can just, live vicariously through that, where they're just watching it and enjoying it, and then maybe see if they want to do it later. I do want to kind of bring up just a point though, because not everybody has the high-end machines, all the toots and whistles that you can do. And when you talked about those sewing machines, I mean, how did you sew those together? With what? A straight stitch, right? A simple straight stitch. And today
Yes.
there really are so many ways to put your quilt together. There, I know both of us really enjoy using the built-in stippling. That just for me, that's always been something very difficult for me to do personally. I'm not afraid to try just about anything else, but doing free motion,
Not me. Yeah.
like stippling's hard for me. So I'd never get to where I could do feathers or anything like that.
No.
It's, if it's
And
not
I will-
automated, it's not coming from my fingertips. But
Right.
there are other ways to quilt. And in fact, there are many things that wouldn't need any more than, quilting with straight lines with a walking foot. Or another one of my personal favorites, I'd be interested to know if you've ever done this, is just to literally, whether you're using a walking foot or a regular foot, just stitch like around the design and then around it again, like a ripple effect. We call that echo quilting.
Yes.
Yeah.
Echo quilt.
And that's
Yes.
something that anybody can do, because all you have to do is have a little bit of patience, because you're going to be pivoting a lot, which means you're going to stop, maybe raise your presser foot and tilt it a little bit and go around that. So I don't want anybody to feel left out, because there really are so many different ways to do things. And you never know what the machine might be in your future, but it's just like anything, make the most of what you have currently. And then when you're ready for the next step, you're going to be ready to grow into something and really learn from it. So
that's what I really like what Brother has done. So they've got this Luminaire, and we know that that's a top of the line machine, right? Or the Baby Lock Solaris, top of the line machine. But one of the great things that Brother has done is they have got machines that are at a very reasonable price point. You can get that PE 800 now for about that many dollars. Okay.
Yes.
They're running about right there. I think during COVID, the prices on them went up because everybody wanted sewing machines to make masks, but the prices have leveled off, and you can get a fabulous embroidery machine like the Brother NQ 1600. It's less than $1,500.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, if you want to make, whether it's table runners or wall hangings or placemats or even a baby quilt, that kind of thing, there are designs like from Designs by Juju. She has edge to edge quilting now.
Yep, I was going to ask you about that, what some of your favorite designers are. So let's go ahead and talk about that.
So Julie Trebe, she's Designs by Juju. She's up in New Hampshire, and she actually commissioned me to make a video of how to use these end-to-end quilting designs for her. And so when you go to her website by doing, you look at these, any one of them you look at, my video telling you how to do this is on that page. And I show how to do it in camera systems that have cameras, and I show how to line it up with an old hoop and a grid. So it doesn't matter what kind of machine you have. Her designs start as small as a 4x4 and go all the way up to the 10x16.
Yeah.
And if you want to make even larger designs, you want to make a larger quilt, she will provide the reverse stitch. So when you flip the quilt over and start to do it another way, she'll provide that to you for free. So that is just a fabulous system that's out there. And if you figure the cost of that, because our hobby is not inexpensive, and if you figure the cost of that, it's going to pay for itself. Your machine will pay for itself within 2 or 3 years of you making your own things and finishing off your own quilts. And that's just a wonderful thing. She's got thousands of designs out there to be able to do that. So it's really quite fun. And so many people email me or message me and say, I just found this. Thank you so much. You explained it great, and I get it. And they're off and running. And that just makes my day.
Yeah, that's it. And you're right. That, I mean, today, more than ever before, there is a machine for every budget, really and truly. Right. And there's always the option of shopping for a pre-owned, pre-loved machine that somebody traded in. So, I've always been, a big believer in finding a good dealer and, trying to, to stick with them whenever possible, because they're going to very often have products and availability for things that you wouldn't find obviously online, and you've a lot of times you've got a warranty with it and everything else too. So it helps a lot. But,
yeah, that's always a wonderful.
when I came into the embroidery world, there was one machine available, and we're talking a long time ago because I've been doing machine embroidery for close to 30 years now. And it was close to $4,000, which was a lot of money at that time.
Yeah.
And it was sewing and embroidery combo, and that was it. And if you didn't buy that one, you weren't doing embroidery. There was just no other option. And today, like we said, there's so many options.
I have a lot of people ask me, what kind of embroidery machine should I get? And everybody has their favorite brand. And I think this is just a general piece of advice that I give. I recommend at least a 5x7 hoop. I think that the more you start to play with embroidery and the more you like it, you're going to find that you will quickly outgrow a smaller hoop. And so I always recommend to people, get a 5x7 hoop, get something that takes a USB, and get something that has a technician nearby. And Jenny Doan gave that advice about sewing machines. And I think that that's probably fabulous advice. And the beauty about Brother machines is that Brother certified technicians are all over the place. And this is not a commercial for Brother. I'm not a Brother ambassador.
Right,
I know
right.
you are. I just am a huge fan of Brother machines. We get along really well, Brother machines and I actually had a different 7 needle before I got Spanky here, and I didn't care for the interface. So that's why I upgraded to the 10 needle.
Yeah. And like,
So, yeah,
from my end, I obviously, my friends here know that I'm always willing to help. I spend every day answering questions that come from somewhere, whether it comes through email or, a comment somewhere, or doing a live show somewhere. And I really love doing that. It's I was asked recently, what's one of your favorite parts of the work that you do? And one of my favorite parts really and truly is just helping somebody else, because I know what it's like to be out there and not have somebody you can ask. I might not always have the exact answer. I try as best I can, but at least it always feels good to know there's somebody out there that you can at least ask. And maybe if I don't know the answer, I could point you in the right direction. And it's the same thing with finding a good dealer. It's not always possible. I know there are people that live in areas where it's just not possible. But if you can, it's very helpful, because you're going to have a friend that you can go to, once you've once you found the
well, and when you mention that, helping people, I answer emails every single day about people have questions about this, that, and the other. A lady emailed me today. She's making the spaceman quilt, and she asked me about trimming the panel and whatnot. And when in your sheet that you sent me, you wanted to talk about what it was like to be an online influencer. And I will tell you, that is probably not the lion's share of the work. I think online influencing is not just showing people the new fancy things that are out there, but you actually have to interact with your viewers. You have to interact with your subscribers, and you have to interact with your Facebook group and all of that, because they form a connection with you. So first thing in the morning, I get up and I'm answering emails, and actually being in front of the camera is the least amount of time that you spend. But the majority of my influencing is done on video editing, hours and hours and hours of video editing for a 20-minute video. And then in the evening, I get on Facebook. Yeah. So I am working 8 to 10 hours a day, and it is a hustle every single day.
You gotta love what you do, for sure, in our arena. And now I had a question scrolled past that I don't want to miss. Unfortunately, I didn't catch the name because it went shoop before I got a chance to see it, and it'd take me a minute to back up. But she wanted to know if, when you do the quilting by machine, if you do it through all of the layers when you're all done, or if you do it before basically you put your backing on, I think is what she was asking.
Okay.
So what's your advice on that?
When you're doing, for instance, the end-to-end quilting, and you're doing a placemat or a wall hanging or something like that, I actually cut the backing a little bit larger than you would normally. And I use the backing as this in the hoop. And I will either either float the rest of it if it's not already attached together. Usually I will spray baste it and then hoop it that way. But yeah, that's the way I do that. I use the backing as the stabilizer. But for instance, on this one, so when I made these little treat totes, okay, the stabilizer was actually the fusible fleece because it's aligned, it has lining. So the stabilizer was the fusible fleece.
And that's one of my favorite ways to do that. Yep. Yeah. I love, do you use the Pellon fusible fleece? Yes. Yeah, that's what I use. In fact, I love it so much. I buy it by the bolt.
I buy it by the bolt. Yeah. And when you're doing that kind of thing where you're using the stippling, you need more of it. And in the video I did today, I didn't have enough of it. And I actually slipped in a piece of poly mesh and used that to extend so I could hoop it and whatnot. So, but I do it all in the hoop, and I use the backing as the stabilizer. Just, and that came to me from making pot holders in the hoop. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking, because my machine could do a crosshatch. I didn't have the luminary yet, and the machine could do a crosshatch. And I was thinking, well, how would I get the stack? And I had to chew on it for a couple of days. And I thought, why are you using stabilizer at all? Use the back of the potholder fabric as your stabilizer, essentially, and hoop it. And it worked perfect. And then you turn around it and put a button on, you're done. Yeah.
And, I have kind of a fun technique. I don't know if you've ever done this, but I call myself a non-conventional quilter because I don't, I like to do a little bit of everything, but I'm not really good at following the rules on quilting. When it comes to garment sewing, I'm a real rule follower, because I was trained that way. But since I wasn't really trained in quilting, I've just dabbled in it and played with it. I kind of make things up as I go along. So one of the things I like to do, let's take like your sewing machine piece, for example, and it's on a block. Sometimes I will put the fusible fleece or a layer of batting behind my piece that actually is being, appliqued on. And then I'll trim all of the excess away outside of it. And then when I layer it to quilt it, then I'll layer it with the whole sheet of batting and the backing, and then stitch through all layers. And what that kind of does is, because then the quilting kind of, tamps down the fabric around, but you have that extra layer of batting behind the applique piece that kind of puffs it out a little bit. It's a little bit of a trapunto type of technique, and it also helps stabilize it. The other thing that I do, and I wonder if you do the same thing, is I almost always, unless maybe I'm using batik, which is a kind of a hefty fabric, but I will iron on fusible, lightweight, woven interfacing to my applique pieces before I even think about doing anything with them. And then obviously you can also use so many different kinds of fusibles to do that too. But applique,
that's a good thing, especially if you're going to have any satin stitching. That is something, like I said, I'm in the middle of Kimberbell's Red, White, and Bloom right now, and they recommend that you use their fusible woven stabilizer on the back of your block piece. I don't recommend it. I would insist on it. Yeah. Because if you don't,
I like that differentiation. I don't recommend this. I insist on it.
Right. Well, I did a sample without it, and I showed my viewers, here's what it looks like if you don't use this. Okay. Yeah. And that's one of the things that, and I always say, test. You've got to test.
That's the key. That's the key. It's always best to test is one of my favorite mottos.
There is a reason we have a scrap basket, and you save those scrap baskets, those scraps just for that purpose. What else are you going to use that stuff for? Well, now an applique, I'll take a square this big and turn it into something. But when you're, there's all kinds of fabric pieces that I have left over, and I don't mind having excess backing fabric from quilting, because then those become my test pieces to do some stitching and see how they're going to work out. So, and one of the things I also do is I use my brother's ScanNCut to cut all of my applique pieces. I will do that. I love that. I hate to cut fabric. when I get done cutting with scissors, it looks like a 4-year-old did it, and I'm not good with that.
Well, it obviously we all have different hand dexterity, and yeah, the ScanNCut really comes to the rescue for that. I would like to have you back on later on down the road, and we'll just talk ScanNCut because we've got so many other things that we're covering tonight. But that would be a fun thing. You're willing to come back for that? That would be
Of
great.
course.
So you would probably agree that the ScanNCut is one of your favorite tools, in your sewing space.
It really is. I like the ScanNCut, not because it's just cutting fabric, but because it allows me to use the Simply Applique software because of the file type that it creates that will be used by either Simply Applique or the BES4 software.
Yes.
It uses that FCM file to create that placement stitch, tack down stitch, and the final satin or blanket stitch.
Right.
And I love it.
Like I said,
it's amazing. It's amazing what that software does. The only drawback on that software is it doesn't work with a Mac. It only works with a Windows machine. And so that can be, I don't know if it works with Parallels or not.
It does actually. I switched to Mac years ago, and all of the computers that I use are Mac, and I have Parallels, and I have been able to use PE Design. I've been able to use Simply Applique, and I've been able to use BES, the BES software successfully. Yeah. You know, you got to know, it takes a little bit of setup because I don't want to get into Parallels, and I'm not a computer geek, but it's the same thing I recommend. Like if you're going to buy a computer, buy it somewhere where you can go ask questions. Now they're not going to help you with that, with the sewing software program, but they'd at least be able to tell you how to configure it so that so that you can switch from one side to the other. And I literally have my Windows, because you still have to have Windows. You have to have Windows loaded on your Mac.
Okay.
But then you just literally, I minimize it. I just switch back and forth all the time. It's kind of crazy.
So glad to hear you say that, because I get asked all the time, and I'm like, I can't confirm that. I've never heard of anybody who's been able to do it. Yeah. So that's fabulous.
If anybody needs more information on that, they can get a hold of me. But let's talk about some littler tools and things that maybe aren't big ticket items. What are some of your favorite power sewing tools that you use in your sewing room? Do you have a favorite stiletto?
Diagonal seam tape from Cluck Cluck Sew. That improved my stitching, my ability to piece those sewing machine blocks, any little thing by Lori Holt, because her stuff is very, very precise. That diagonal seam tape, do you use it? Joanne, do you use it?
I have never heard of it. No, it's totally new to me.
Oh my, well, let me get it.
Okay. All right. And yeah, we've got a couple, let me look at the questions. I got somebody asking about the ScanNCut compared with the Cricut. Well, I don't have any experience with the Cricut. I only have experience with the ScanNCut. So I can't really tell you, all the ins and outs. I will tell you one of the things that sets the ScanNCut apart from every other cutter out there is the word scan. Yes. Because brother came from the technology of the printer world and the scanners. And so what they did is they married that into a cutting machine. So you can literally, and I know you've got videos on this, where you can take a pattern or an image or a drawing, anything, that you have on paper, and literally scan it in to that cutting machine so that it can read the image, and then you can decide what you want to do with that image. You can draw with it, you can cut with it, you can emboss with it, you can do stencils with it, you can do rhinestones. There's just so many things that you can do, but having the ability to actually bring in that image is what the ScanNCut allows you to do. And there are many models of the ScanNCut as well. So, you can look into that.
I had a different cutting machine years ago, and I could not get the hang of it because it wanted me to calibrate my phone on a calibration page in order to take a picture of an image to get it into their cloud. And half the time it didn't work. And I needed something for applique quilts. And so that's why I sold that on Craigslist. And then I bought my brother's ScanNCut from my local dealer. So, okay, this is diagonal seam tape. This, you want to get it. It's from Cluck Cluck Sew. Now see, this is online influencing at its finest.
Okay.
Can you see this? So the red line goes in line with your needle, and you have an exact 1/4 inch seam on either side. And so you put this with it right at your needle and then run it down the base of your machine toward you. And then when you are sewing 1/4 inch seams, you can, and you have your, say you're doing half square triangles and you have it to the side, you can align your fabric exactly before it gets to the needle, and you will get much straighter seams. It's amazing how it works.
So it's basically functions like a seam guide.
So it is.
Yeah.
It's a seam guide, and it improved my stitch quality incredibly. And I want to tell you too, one of the things I gave out this little tip when I was doing the Liberty quilt, tons of half square triangles on that. Pardon me. I actually had to pull out my old sewing knowledge, my garment sewing knowledge, and I could never figure out why when you stitch down the center, you know, you've got a square and you stitch down, how come the end didn't fold over and meet on that flip and turn method for that half square triangle? It would drive me crazy. Or even if you're trying to create a corner, an angled corner, the trick is turn of cloth.
Turn of the cloth. Yep. That's big in garment sewing. Absolutely. And a lot of people don't know that term. So basically, you know, what it means is you're going to lose some fabric when you turn the cloth. So you're going to lose some of the size, lose some of the width, and you need to account for that.
You need to account for that. And so the simple trick is when you take your ruler and you've got your square and it's essentially a diamond in front of you, and you have your ruler exactly on point to point, then you draw the line. The line is not center because the ruler is center. So then I take the marking tool that I have, usually a friction marker, and I will just make a little mark on the short side. That's the side that gets trimmed off. And then when you fold that other corner over, everything fits perfect. And I brought that up, and people were, I've never heard of turn of cloth. I said, it's not used in the quilting world. It's in the garment world. I took tons of garment classes on Craftsy back in the day.
So you've had, well, you know, you have to gravitate to what you really enjoy doing. If you enjoy, you know, doing other things, that's good too. You know, there's different stitches for different ones of us, for sure. I'm looking at some of the comments here, and I guess it was a little bit of a leading question with the asking you about tools, but I don't have it with me. I left it in my sewing room, but you gifted me with one of your tools, and we've got some people here saying that they are using your stiletto / seam ripper as one of their favorite tools. So you got one close by you can show?
Do I have one close by? I brought the whole
Oh, wow. Okay. So for those of you that are interested, those are available on Becky's website,
powertoolswiththreadstore.com.
Okay, very good. We'll put a link for that too.
Okay, these are custom made by my husband. A friend of mine gave me one, and my husband used to spin wood and on his lathe and make pens. And he looked at that and he said, I can make those. And that started it. So they are just absolutely fabulous. It has it's a stainless steel seam ripper blade, and it tucks into here, or you can pull it out like that. I didn't even follow that leading question, Joanne. I'm so And the other end is a stiletto if you are making bags. And we have sold hundreds of these. And yes, if it rolls off your table and the tip breaks, we do sell additional tips as well. But it starts as a cube of acrylic.
Yeah, you sent me a little sample of that. I showed it to my husband, and he was just amazed with that. And we both looked up, you know, what it is. It's a piece of acrylic. Is that what it is? Is it acrylic? Okay.
It's a block of acrylic. They're about 7 inches long. And then of course the ends come in a kit. So these are real pretty. This is the blue and the lime green, aqua blue and lime
gorgeous.
Green.
Absolutely gorgeous.
Popular. And then the purple. And the nice thing about these is, see how big around this is? They've got some heft to them, and they're very, very comfortable on arthritic fingers.
Plus, it's just fun to have something that's pretty.
Well, that's That's true, yeah. And they work so well. We have many returning customers. The Shopify website tells us we have a return customer rate of over 30%. That's unheard of in shopping world, you know.
And the rippers themselves are replaceable because they're going to get dull eventually. Now, a stiletto, I'd like to just, delve into that for just a minute here. A stiletto, I say it's like having an extra finger. And it's like having a finger that you don't have to worry about sewing through. It's like not a subject we like to talk about, but I bet many of us have at least nipped the tip at some time or another. And it's better to, use that as an instrument to get close. A lot of our fabrics need a little bit of coaxing underneath the presser foot. That's another,
Yep.
Exactly.
Denim and bags. I use it all the time.
Or when you're just, I like to use it also when I'm doing applique work, just to tamp down the edges, like especially if I use a little bit of glue stick on the back, just to kind of dab it so that you're just using a little bit of a gentle touch with that. I've seen another question. Somebody asked about the ScanNCut, back to the ScanNCut, if you can use that without a brother machine. And absolutely you can use it, by itself, but it marries well with brother machines, and certain brother machines have certain technology built into them that will link together with that. So that's a little bit of a broad topic, but so yeah, all those tools really are what I would consider, must-have things. And it's wonderful that you provide so many really pretty ones to use. I think as creatives, we're always looking for tips and tricks to be more productive in our sewing space. So what are some of your favorite tips for maybe like for organizing or just making your sewing space a happy place? And we know not everybody has a great big room. You might have just a little corner somewhere. I have a good friend. She just sets up on the dining room table every time she wants to go crazy, puts it back, puts it away when she has to. But give us a few of your favorite tips for kind of being more productive and maybe organizing a little bit.
At the end of every day, I clean my sewing space. At the end of every day, I clean off my table. I put everything away. Unless I'm right in the middle of something, I might leave that sitting on the sewing machine. But to me, the uncluttered space frees my mind to not get scatterbrained. And that's probably the biggest productivity tip I can give is put away all those pins and needles, put all your scissors away, put everything back so that when you come back the next day, you're not going, what did I do with that? Where is that? It's buried. It's lost. And
it gives you a good start.
That's the military in me, though. Everything has a place, everything in its place. It's got to get squared away. And that just, and then I group things by subject around in my sewing room. So there is an area for embroidery, and there is an area for long arming, and there's an area for the ironing.
You have zones.
I have zones. You have to do that because, especially with me being in here, master of none. I like to play with everything a little bit. I've got to have, and I don't have a huge fabric stash. My room is mostly sewing tools and machines, if you will. But I think that's the biggest thing. Put your ScanNCut mats away. Put your thread away. I'm really guilty about that one, about putting my thread away.
Thread is tough,
but it never fails that when you go.
That can pile up pretty fast.
So
yeah.
But and I think that's tough for some people. My mother could not put her stuff away, and she was forever, looking for stuff in it. But I couldn't do that. And it's not that I can't go to bed with a messy sewing room. It's just, I just feel like that is probably the best productivity tool, is to just pick up after yourself, throw scraps away, have a place to put things. That's the biggest thing.
Yeah. Well, speaking of that, you're doing a lot of things at one time, because I've watched you where you're working on this, and you're working on that, you're working on that, you're announcing what you're going to do next. Right. And you have a really nice way of putting things in containers. I happen to use like Ziploc bags. That just works for me. But any kind of container that'll kind of keep things corralled, especially when you're doing a lot of things with kits and things like that, because it's very easy to mix up a piece or a part, and then that can
Yes.
really mess you up. So maybe our friends here could share what some of their things, some of their favorite ideas are for kind of keeping things under control in your sewing space. It would be fun to see what everybody else is thinking.
I just found I was at Walmart and I found it was a shoe rack that had these little mesh, instead of a shelf, it was mesh. And I looked at that, you know what, that's holding every bit of my embroidery stabilizer. And I took those little chalkboards with little clothespins and wrote the kind of stabilizer that it is and put it all in there. And it's got 30 rolls of stabilizer. It is completely, everything is organized, labeled, and I can find it all, and it's all in one spot. And that's one of the best organization things I've purchased in forever. Unbelievable.
That's a good one. That's a good
I got
one.
it for 20 bucks.
Yep. Having
I showed it on a video.
Yep, I saw it. I did see that one. That was a great idea. That is, and it is really important. I can think if anybody here is new to embroidery, even if you're not new and you've done this for a while, probably one of the best things you can do from the very beginning is label all your stabilizers, because it's very easy to mix things up. I used to have people come in when I was teaching classes in a store, and they'd bring just like this stack. And they said, I bought all this because you told me I needed it, but I don't remember what any of it is, because we sold a lot of it in bulk by the yard, which is a nice way to buy things, for affordability and all that. But I could tell what everything was, and then I'd write out a little piece of paper and label it and say, when you get home, put this somewhere in a, organize it somehow that works for you. But yeah,
I used to take the label off and tape it to the inside of the tube. That's usually what I would do, so I could remember what it was. Because once you peel that label off, you don't know, is it poly mesh? Is it fusible poly mesh?
Is it water soluble? Because that could make a difference too. Yeah, we're getting some good comments in here from our friends here that's got some good ideas too. Well, this has been really fun. We probably ought to wrap up with just a few more questions. I wondered, what's under your needle right now? What project are you most excited about?
So today I finished yesterday I finished Pat Sloan's stuff. I've got the American Muscle quilt is on my long arm right now. And I've got to do a video for Designs by Juju for how to make big quilts. And yeah, I've got a lot going on. I really want to get back at Sew by Row, but just finishing up this today was good. Oh, can I show off Miss Texas? Can I do that?
Yes, that would be wonderful. So while Becky's running over to get her little baby that she's going to show us, you'll see what it is in a minute. If we have any questions that you want to get in, we've just got a few more minutes to go. So get them in here. Kay is asking, does iron-on stabilizer go bad? I've never had iron-on stabilizer go bad, but I have actually had adhesive stabilizer lose its adhesive properties. That can be affected by heat, humidity, lack of humidity. I have had that happen. So with iron-on, I don't know. Again, go back to test is best, but I have not had that happen with iron-on.
And something you just talked about, humidity is huge. If you live in the desert Southwest, your experience with those stabilizers is going to be very, very different from where I am, where it's very humid all the time.
Right.
And it really makes a difference. If you live in a high altitude, it makes a difference, not only in your cake mixes, but also in your stabilizers. And it's funny how they don't really mention that, but I have noticed it based on where I've lived over my years in the military, that things are different in different air zones, humid zones for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, I'm checking over here at the chat, so that's why I'm turning my head, but let's see. Oh, somebody wants to know about my top, so I guess I'll take a second to talk about that. This is a ready-made jacket. So I did not purchase, I did not make it from scratch. I purchased it and then added the embroidery designs. The embroidery designs are from my book, wrapped in embroidery, and I stitched this actually with a water soluble stabilizer. These designs were designed to go on a lighter weight fabric, so I was able to stitch this with just water soluble and then have it all disappear. And I actually used matching bobbin thread, so I wound a bobbin for every color that I was using. And
That's
it's
lovely.
one of my specialty things is showing how to link patterns together so that they match, perfectly end to end. So thanks for asking. I appreciate that.
Lovely. So here is Miss Texas.
Miss Texas.
This was gifted to me, believe it or not, by a lady in North Carolina, and she said she needs to come home. Her name was Marcia that gave this to me.
Isn't that amazing?
It is a Singer 221 featherweight. It was made in August of 1950 based on the serial number, and it has been painted with a rippling flying Texas flag.
It is absolutely gorgeous, just gorgeous.
Unbelievable.
Absolutely
I was
gorgeous.
like, are you serious? You want to do that? She said, yes. I couldn't believe it. It's just, and I took it out in the motorhome on our last trip, and I sewed a little wall hanging with some coffee mugs using this, and it worked fine. It worked just fine.
Oh,
and
how fun.
Shelf that's underneath my shadow box from my military retirement, and she's got her own place right here. But yeah, using her, and it's just awesome. So, but I call
that's
him
a special gift. Cheryl says what a special gift indeed. That is a very special gift. Yeah,
I call her Miss Texas because she's a beauty queen. She is a beauty queen. But
well, we got a few more questions here that I don't want to miss. We did have another one asking about how stabilizers can be affected by the weather. It's basically if you have a stabilizer that is affected by too much moisture, it can change the properties of it. And if you have a stabilizer that's affected by too little moisture, it can change it. And basically, I would say the two that are going to be most susceptible are going to be the water soluble and anything that has a temporary adhesive on it.
Right.
So, if it's got a permanent fusible on it, you shouldn't have a problem with it. But the water soluble ones, I just without a doubt, I always put them in a fully sealed Ziploc bag, because if the air is too dry, they're going to get crumbly. And then they're not going to be as flexible anymore. And if they're left out in an area with too much humidity, they can actually get a little bit gooey sometimes.
Right.
And or too soft. So by keeping them sealed in a plastic bag with the air, pretty much all the air taken out of it, is a good way to go. And the same thing with adhesive stabilizers. Just there's something about the mostly what I found is the dryness in the air that just kind of makes that temporary adhesive almost like just dissipate from the air, because there are some sprays that are sticky sprays that are designed to do just that. The air itself makes them disappear after a period of time. So, that's just something to be aware of. So, but we've got some great comments here. People really enjoying the show. And it's been wonderful to have you here. So thank you for being my special guest. This will be available on a replay, so it will replay right here on YouTube. You will also find a replay this weekend on letsgosew.com, along with a full blog post where I will list the highlights. We'll list some links. We'll have all the contact information, but let's go ahead and just before we say goodbye, Becky, tell us again how everyone can find you out there in the internet world.
Okay, so my YouTube channel is called Power Tools with Thread. You can just go on there, you can search embroidery, machine embroidery tutorial, and my channel will pop up. We have a Facebook group, Power Tools with Thread Facebook group. My blog is Power Tools with Thread. So you can pretty much find me anywhere, looking like that. So this has been a blast. I've had so much fun. It's like sitting across the kitchen table chatting.
It's been wonderful. I'm glad we finally got to connect and got everything going. And I just can't thank enough everybody who hung in there. I know you were probably all like, wondering what in the world was going on for those first 15 minutes. we don't know. We were trying everything in the book to get it going, and we just finally landed on something that worked. So thank you all for being here. It's been great. Love you all. And Becky, I will say goodbye, and we will have you back again, definitely in the future. So
I look forward